Welcome back to the Muzzle Blast Podcast, the official podcast of the National Muzzle Loading Rifle Association. This week we're talking with Luke Horak of Arrowhead Rifles. Luke has spent much of his life hunting and got into muzzleloaders around the early 2000s and has since grown his interest in them into his own company, Arrowhead Rifles, where he's building custom-build, long-range precision muzzleloaders. It's really neat talking to Luke and getting kind of a modern perspective on how he came into muzzleloading and why. He's currently lives in Arizona, but grew up hunting in Iowa. And so we talk a little bit about the changes for him between hunting in the Midwest and then hunting out west. Luke also shares some details and some of the stories behind how Arrowhead got started, as well as some really neat kind of technical information, I'd say, about what he's doing now in the precision muzzleloading space in general.
Name is Luke Horak. Spell it like Ack or Ick, but pronounce it O-C-K, so Horak. I'm never offended if people get it wrong. Hardly anyone ever gets it right the first time, just trying to read it. But originally from Iowa, grew up chasing rabbits and sparrows and starlings around with a BB gun. I think earliest recollection of hunting stuff was trying to have to sneak around and avoid my mom and my grandma catching me shooting sparrows and stuff in the backyard. We kind of grew up in town, moved to the country later. When I was like 11 or 12. And I think eventually my brother and I broke in, my mom and my grandma, but they were definitely borderline anti-hunters early on, but that couldn't really hold my brother and I back. We were so into it, had such a passion, but so eventually transitioned to 22s and shotguns. My brother and I both participated in the Youth Hunter Education Challenge, junior high and high school. Had a lot of fun with that. Went to a couple of nationals, and
great!
I just had a fun time competing. I did one at the NRA Whittington Center there in New Mexico, and then two of them in Pennsylvania. I can't recall the name of the place in Pennsylvania, but yeah, it was a great time. Just really enjoyed competing in the hunting and shooting sports. I think I bought my first muzzleloader to kind of get into because of the muzzleloader competition portion of the Youth Hunter Education Challenge, just something to practice with. And my dad had a 54 cal side lock percussion thing he bought from Cabela's, and my brother and I played around with that some, but the first muzzleloader I bought, I was probably 14, 15 at the time, was I think a TC Firehawk. Okay. And had a lot of fun with that. Yeah. It shot pretty well. I shot quite a few deer with it and stuff. And as I transitioned through high school into college, I kind of got tired of cleaning and stuff. It's probably kind of a mortal sin to admit that to some of your more traditional listeners, but I just got frustrated. We was busy and didn't really enjoy cleaning and stuff. So I actually put the muzzleloader down for a while, and it was mainly, in Iowa, it's shotgun muzzleloader only. Okay. For deer hunting, or at least at the time it was. Now I think they allow the straight wall cartridges for some of the seasons, but so I spent a lot of time late high school, college, trying to get to 200 yards with a slug gun. And I mean, I guess it's kind of doable in theory, but it was really just kind of a waste of time. And then got through college, graduated with my mechanical engineering degree from Iowa State University, and went to work for a defense contractor working in microelectronics packaging. So I did a lot of the internal components of military GPS and stuff like that. So not really firearms related at all, but the mechanical engineering really gave me a good background to when I transitioned into building guns later on to actually design stuff. And it's been very useful. But about that time, I think it was, and I get the date wrong. Every podcast I've done this year, I've had the wrong origin date for the Savage 10 ML2. For some reason, I would say 2004, but I think it was really 2001 when the Savage came out with their 10 ML. Yeah. And, kind of introduced smokeless muzzleloading. And I graduated college in 2006 and bought a Savage 10 ML2 that summer. And it was just nothing but headaches for me. So I got it in August, went out, down the pasture and was just loading and shooting. And it was probably 80 degrees and could not hit the broad side of the barn with it. Was just super frustrated. And then I finally got it shooting okay, but had some misfires, and eventually found my way to Doug's message board online. And there were some guys there that were, for one, they kind of figured out how to get the 50 cals to shoot. And at that time I found out that sabos don't handle heat very well, especially when you're running higher pressure loads like high performance smokeless or blackhorn. Trying to shoot sabos in 80-degree weather is just gonna, you're gonna knock your head against the wall trying to get those to work. And when, found out I had the bore on my muzzleloader was loose. So I needed to, up the bullet diameter, get a tighter fit with the sabo, and eventually got that 50 cal Savage shooting pretty darn well. But I always like to upgrade. I hardly, there's about 3 guns in my safe that I'll never sell. And then everything else is, if I grow tired of it or whatever, I move it on. I'm always love to upgrade and, just tinker with stuff. So a lot of the guys on Doug's were rebarreling to 45 cal with Packnor barrels. And so that's, was the next step. So I bought a 45 cal Packnor barrel, and I thought I had arrived at that point. I mean, that thing was an absolute hammer. I killed a lot of deer 250 yards, over in that 230 to 250 range. I mean, couldn't hardly miss with the thing. Was running a 195 grain Barnes expander.
Wow.
And, it was just hammering deer with it. And that was still shooting sabos. The ballistic coefficient on that bullet was, I think it's probably around 0.22 G1 BC. So it, around 300 yards, 250, 300 yards, it really starts to fall off the table. But, but about that time, Packnor was running about 14 to 16 weeks on replacement replacement Savage barrels. And no one really wants to wait, 16 weeks to get a replacement barrel. And this was around 2011 at this point. So it was from 2006 to 2011 was kind of my journey from factory Savage 50 cal to, rebarrel to the Packnor.
Right.
And that, so I saw an opportunity to start ordering barrels in bulk from Savage and just reselling them. So I put in that order, my first order with Packnor. I think it was like 20 barrels to get the dealer pricing. And it was a pretty big investment for me at the time. And it was, I was like, boy, is this really going to work? And, but it's actually, it was pretty crazy. I think I had every single barrel pre-sold, before the first batch showed up. And then I started selling bullets and breech plugs and other accessories. And, a lot of guys don't want to or know how to swap a barrel out. So I started doing that. And then I just started getting into things more and more. There was a lot of innovation happening on Doug's. And then, at some point I just kind of transitioned into, doing full on builds. And I mean, I'll admit early on, this was like 9 years ago almost now that I started, some of the stuff was, I kind of cringe looking back at my early work. I've just, steadily improved. And I mean, that's really one of the things I enjoy about this job is, finding, areas to improve and then becoming the best at them. So, I always enjoy getting in the work, another gunsmith's work and pulling the gun apart. Actually, just this morning, I had a customer stop by with a gun that he had someone else bed. And, it's easy to be critical of everyone's work. There's a lot of that going on, and rightly so. There are some real hacks out there, but I actually enjoy pulling stuff apart to try and figure out how guys are doing stuff, because there are tricks of the trade. And I like to, pay real close attention to Instagram pictures and stuff when people are showing stuff. I'm like, oh, that looks really nice. Start thinking how they're getting that look and stuff. And, it's been a way to up my game, because I want to be the best at what I do. So it's fun seeing what's out there and learning from that. So that's kind of, I guess, a long version of where we are today. So I guess today it's, I still sell a lot of the upgrade kits for the Savage, Remington Ultimate Muzzleloader, replacement Encore barrels at this point. I probably missed one big jump, and that was, boy, I can't remember exactly how far that's been, but when we made the transition from sabos to full bore 45 cal projectiles, and that was really a big leap forward in technology. And I think you see it, the muzzler shoots there at Friendship, the inline stuff where everyone's doing full bore 45. The consistency is just so much better. You take out that sabo and remove the weak link. But yeah, so like I was saying, we do still sell a lot of the accessories, the upgrades. I've got my own patented breech plug system that's real popular. I sell, barrel blanks, basically any, if a gunsmith doesn't want to wait for Brooks or Bartlett or whoever to turn a blank for them, I keep all those on hand. So that's a big part of my business. And then I'm doing full on custom builds as well. And I also started to do a few center fire rifles now, just to kind of branch out. I moved from, missed another step. I moved from about 2.5 years ago. I moved from Iowa to Arizona. My wife isn't an Iowa native and just couldn't handle those Midwest winters. So we moved out to Arizona. And I'll be honest, I kind of miss the Midwest. It's, where I learned to hunt and stuff. So it's been a little harder transition for me here to get into hunting. You really got to drive more and plan things out more, where Iowa, it's, growing up on the farm and stuff, just head out the back door and start hunting. So it can be a little more spontaneous. But as far as the firearms industry out here, that's been really good for the business. McMillan's like 15 minutes from me, Timney, H&M, the Black Nitride, they're 30-minute drive away. Pretty much anything you need for firearms related is here in Phoenix. So that part is awesome. But so that's kind of catching you up to how I got to where I am today.
That's awesome. I really appreciate it. That was a lot of detail, but I think that was really neat, kind of hearing about each of your steps as you got to where you're at now. I can't imagine. I think the largest jump, I think for me being a Midwestern kid, the jump from hunting here, like you say, going out to the backyard, going back into the woods, to going out west. I don't know anything about Western hunting. I'll be the first to admit it, but I just know that it's radically different than hunting here.
It's pretty awesome when you have a tag, but getting a tag out here, that's where you kind of, if you want to get out and hunt every year, you got to put in for a lot of different states. And really the only way to be guaranteed to go every year is have, if a buddy draws a good tag or tag, whatever, just tag along with them to help out. It's definitely, it's not always the case. There's definitely guys that do it individually, but from what I've seen, it's a little bit more of a group activity out here. Well, Iowa used to be shotguns, a lot of deer drives and stuff. So there's a lot of, deer camp camaraderie with that, which I really enjoyed. Maybe the wild slug flinging slugs around deer drive thing, not so much, but the deer camp camaraderie. But that, most of that's transitioned to, a lot of bow hunting. People, big tracts of land where they just have box blinds. So I think a lot of that's tradition's gone away. But here you do still have the hunting camp, and you might only have one or two guys in the camp that have a tag, but everyone's out there helping to glass and stuff like that. So that's cool.
And I think importantly, helping pack out, depending on what you're hunting.
That too. Yeah, for sure.
So what's a day in your life look like? Are you handling Arrowhead all on your own, or do you have some employees that work with you?
So currently I'm on my own. I'm looking to hire someone here in the fairly near future. It's keeps me very busy as is, but I usually get up about 5 and the shop is here on site. Actually, I'm working out of my 3-stall garage currently, but the plans are drawn. I'm just waiting on the permit to clear. We're putting up a real nice shop in the backyard here. So yeah, that'll be really nice to get a little more leg room. My wife is excited to be able to park her Jeep in the garage again. But so I get up about 5, try and catch up on a little email. I'll go out in the shop and or in the garage and maybe tinker a little bit. I try not to get into stuff too much. I try not to touch lays and mills and stuff that can have bad repercussions if you make a wrong turn until after 8 in the morning, just so that I'm fully alert and focused. But like I said, I'll catch up on the email, do some odds and ends, and then around 7:30 or 8, I'll come in for breakfast with my wife and daughter, and then then it's back out in the shop and at it. And I usually try to cut out about 4:30 or 5 during the day, but we've got a lot of website orders coming in, so shipping out packages, answering phone calls, running the equipment. It definitely gets challenging sometimes answering the phone calls and still getting work done. That's one of the reasons I don't accept any phone orders, just because if I stop to take phone orders, I wouldn't get everything done. I know it makes it a little challenging for some customers, but it's just the way it's got to be currently. But I'm trying not to. There's definitely the justification to hire a full-time person, but I'm just not really in a hurry to overgrow and have someone here, increase my overhead. But at some point that's going to happen. So,
and that's a lot of work too, bringing someone in and training them and getting them around. And, when you're working for yourself or with yourself, it's nice because, you're the only person you have to have meetings with, but then you have everything else that comes on when you hire somebody else.
Well, and there's, part of the challenge is too, it's like, I can't just train someone to, answer technical questions about an Arrowhead muzzleloader. It's a CVA muzzleloader, Remington. There's all this knowledge base that I get calls about. So to train someone how to answer all those questions it's gonna be time consuming. But that's one of the things that I'll probably mention it again at the end. But as far as if anybody listening to this decides to contact me with questions about stuff, you can try on the phone. Sometimes you'll get me, sometimes you won't. I do try to answer, return phone calls, but email is definitely more consistent. But I'll be honest, if you write me 8 paragraphs, asking obscure questions and stuff, you're probably not going to get a real detailed response. I don't have the bandwidth. So, recommend reading the website and, watching some of the videos I have and trying to get the information off there. And if you don't see a muzzleloader, anything about a particular model of muzzleloader on my website, then don't bother calling me and asking me about that. Cause if it's something I deal with, have, product for, then it's on the website.
So are you kind of the go-to muzzleloading shop in your area then, if you're getting a lot of these calls and questions, or are people just finding you online and then wanting to chat about them?
Yeah, it's online. It's, there's maybe it's primarily online, very, very little local traffic. High performance stuff. I definitely get a lot of people contacting me locally, but I think I did a podcast with Vortex earlier in the year and had one gentleman call me asking about, I don't even remember the model of muzzleloader. It's something I'd never even heard of. And I'm like, yeah, I've got no idea what you're even talking about. So I sent him over to, I think, modernmuzzleloader.com. There's a lot of guys on there that know every obscure model of muzzleloader. And I send him over there. I'm like, if there's somebody that knows the answer to the question, it'll be over there. So that's a, for the more primitive oddball stuff, that's a great place to go find out information and get help.
So you're handling everything then. What's your favorite thing to focus on or work on? I mean, it's definitely not phone calls.
No. It's kind of hard to, I mean, honestly, I don't know if it's one thing in particular. I do really enjoy the machining part. Early on, I subbed out all the machining. I was, a full-time engineer. I didn't have the bandwidth to do the machining operation. So I subbed out most of that. Now that's all in-house, and I've just really enjoyed, perfecting that. So I do enjoy that. And then honestly, it's not necessarily a task or, a portion of it that I enjoy, but it's really just like finding a problem and solving it. Mm-hmm. Like last week, I was installing ramrods and just didn't have a good way to make sure, when I set the retention part of the ramrod system in the stock to make sure everything was aligned. So I ended up making up this fixture that threads on the end of the barrel and helps me align everything perfectly, and I don't have to eyeball it anymore. And it's because when you're trying to see if something's straight, you're holding it up. Are those sling studs straight where they're supposed? Because a lot of the stock makers just kind of eyeball those sling studs when you put it in. So it's like, is my reference point true? And so it's just finding a problem and solving it. Another cool thing we came up with this year, my bullet maker and I, was the no sizing required bullets. So, to this point, everyone was running bullets through a sizing die or a swager to fit the bullet to the barrel. And, with the help of my bullet maker, we came up with a way of doing a pre-size that allows a little bit of buffer with the barrel, but it's allowed us to eliminate the sizing die. So now you just, pull the bullets out of the pack and stuff them down the barrel and get that no sabo performance without having to mess around with setting a sizing die. So so finding problems like that or areas to improve and fixing them, that as an engineer, that's like, I mean, it's kind of like crack to find a problem and engineer a solution and find it, have it actually work. So that's definitely what I enjoy most about the job.
Yeah, that's kind of the high you're always chasing there.
Yeah. Like a year ago, I if you'd asked me what needs improvement, I'd been like, wow, I think I've really got a pretty solid system, but it's crazy that the things, with these bullets we came out with, and I've got a couple other things in the works that, are really big improvements, but it wasn't, the thing I find fascinating is, I mean, how long have muzzleloaders been around?
Yeah.
And, you can still come up with ways to make them better.
Yeah.
So that's
kind of it's a hot topic in muzzleloading because you have everybody who likes the side locks and likes the real traditional stuff. And I love that stuff, but I also grew up shooting competitive, as fast as you can make the gun, and still be a muzzleloader. And I think that I equated a lot to racing, and talking to guys from like CVA and things. It's not about getting rid of the old side locks or diminishing that at all. It's just about making a faster muzzleloader. Just like making a faster car. And they're all connected because it's all muzzle loading and you're loading it the same way. And a lot of the ignition technology is very similar to the way it was hundreds of years ago, but you're always trying to push that envelope a little bit.
Right. Exactly. I mean, a lot of what drives my business is hunting, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to, push the limits for ethically harvesting game. That's how I originally got my start in it, was trying to get past 200 yards with a slug gun and, giving up on that and moving into muzzleloaders. But I mean, there's definitely some nostalgia with muzzleloaders. I mean, you definitely see, some people not being so crazy about the more modern stuff. And
yeah,
I get that too, but it's like anything. Guys like to experiment and make, like you said, I think that's really a great analogy with the race cars. There's a race car is still a car, just the same as the Model T is, but as or some classic, but there's room for everything.
When it comes to like your customs and the parts that you're making for other people's guns that they're upgrading, what ranges and what distances are you shooting for? Like you said there, you're always hunting that ethical shot. And I think a lot of people have a different idea of what that is. And so what are you shooting for when it comes to that?
So, yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, that's where there's, even within the modern inline crowd or this high performance sector, there's a little debate as far as what's ethical. If you run the numbers and look at, plug in your muzzle velocity and the BC of the bullet and stuff, and look at wind drift and stuff like that, I personally feel like in fairly reasonable wind conditions and stuff, around 500 yards is a good max. Some people that don't practice as much, don't shoot as much, their number is going to be less. Some guys that maybe practice more, they might be able to push that further. Mm-hmm. So I tell my customers around 500 yards is like if they're shooting at an elk, is a decent max. Past 500, the energy is still there. The accuracy is there. I mean, I've shot ridiculously small groups at 900 yards, but it took me three shots to figure out the wind and get on a 3x3 foot piece of steel. You don't have that luxury, obviously, if you're shooting at an animal. There's definitely, I think a lot of people, rightfully so, look down on, bird gun, slug guns, guys flinging slugs with their bird guns. And, but you definitely have some of that here out West where, they're just like, send it. And it doesn't really matter how far it is if they can see it. And, everyone, I mean, there's no substitute for practice and stuff. So I know 500 yards seems like a long ways. And, it is. There's a lot that can go wrong. People, like I said, need to do their practicing and understand what wind does and different shooting positions. That's one of the biggest issues I see is guys that never practice anywhere but on the bench or the lead sled, mm-hmm. and then get into the field and their point of impact is totally different. That was something I learned a long time ago with the slug guns, is just how different holds really impact where you're going to hit. I was always shooting deer a little bit high with the slug gun, and it's because when I sighted in, I was doing a hard hold on the bench, and if you're shooting freehand or just leaning across the branch, you get a lot more muzzle rise, and that was raising stuff up. So yeah, people really need to get your gun zeroed on the bench and then get off that bench. Don't ever get on it again unless you're checking your zero or something, and start shooting how you're gonna hunt. Yeah. I do see a lot of places calling their muzzleloaders 1,000-yard muzzleloaders or however far, but I've shot at 1,000 even with my guns are smokeless powder capable. Obviously never use smokeless powder in a gun that's not designed for it, but we're talking substantially more velocity than what you get out of a Blackhorn 209 gun. And mm-hmm. I mean, at 1,000 yards shooting at a 3x3 plate, you'll hit it, you'll hit it. If the wind's steady, you'll hit it every time. If the wind's changing off and on, I mean, you just dance back and forth around it, just because the BC of the bullets is relatively low. And it's past five, I'm kind of rambling now, but past 500, I mean, it's kind of a crapshoot. Not to pick on any customer, but I had a guy shoot an elk I had one guy shoot an elk at 630. He bought his gun he bought a replacement barrel from me about 3 weeks before season, shot it a bunch. He smoked an elk at 630. Wow. Had another customer, I full on custom. I built him. He shot it to 500 a lot before season, and was just hammering with it, and shot at an elk at 660, and hit it in the butt. And, he ended up, that is, I guess a good part is these guns still carry a ton of energy.
Yeah.
He was able to get up on the elk again and get it killed. So it worked out in the end, but he's asking me, why did I miss so bad? And I'm like, well, you never shot past 500. Yeah. Did you hold for any wind? And he's like, no, it was foggy, real calm in the morning. There wasn't any wind. And I'm like, well, no. there was a little wind.
Yeah.
There's always some, if it's 600 some yards across the canyon, somewhere in there's some wind probably. Yeah. And it doesn't, at that distance, you plug in 1 mile an hour crosswind and you're talking like 10 inches of drift or something like that. So, there's like, I guess, long answer to say there's really no cut and dried number. Yeah. People need to get out and practice and find out, what distance they can consistently put a hit on an animal. And sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say there, I think that's the answer that we hear most commonly, when we ask guys who are building or guys who are hard shooters, they're not builders, but they're really focusing on loads. It really comes down to what you're comfortable with and what you've practiced with. A lot of our matches at Friendship are, go out to 500, but then we also have our Creedmoor match where we're recreating the Creedmoor, 1,000-yard match with a muzzleloader. And that's all about that practice and that, getting into that rhythm. So, how to take that animal ethically, and try not to make it too horrendous for it, to go out of the world. I think that,
right.
I think that's a great answer.
Yeah. you see like what Jeff Fisk can do at 500 yards with the reduced power loads and stuff. You have no problem imagining that he could probably, put an elk down at 600 or 700 yards. But that guy, I know how many bullets he shoots a year. It's a pile. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. But, the average guy, 400 or 500 yards is probably a good number to shoot for.
Listening to that, when the guy asked you how he missed, I was listening to the Vortex podcast, and they were talking about long range shooting in one of the episodes, and one of their coaches or somebody had told them that if you clear the chamber, point the muzzle in a safe direction and shake your gun and nothing's rattling, it's you. And,
yeah.
I feel like, especially at Friendship on the competition line, there's always a million excuses, but if the gun's not rattling, it's between your ears.
Right. Exactly.
I always like that.
That's very true. It's funny. I might have to use that one this fall.
Yeah, you should. But, you're welcome to. The last question I've got is, where do you see precision muzzleloading going in the next 5 years? I think it's accelerated quite a bit in the last few years, just kind of watching from the sidelines. I'm a competition shooter and I do some living history stuff, but the precision side of things has just kind of really opened up my eyes to what you can do with something that's still a muzzleloader. And I was just curious what you thought would be coming in the next 5 years.
Yeah, well, that's actually, when I did jot down a few notes on the top discussion topics you sent me, and I more mainstream is what I wrote down on that one. I think it's just going to keep on getting more mainstream. When I started Arrowhead back in 2011, you could maybe come up with 10 guys doing this high performance stuff, and now there's, you probably can't even hardly count all the Smiths and different places doing, high performance 45 cal stuff, CVA, just, with that Paramount they came out with. That's definitely a step towards taking it more mainstream. As far as the technology, I'm not like we were talking earlier, it's kind of hard to imagine where it's going to go. But as more and more people start messing with stuff, the more new ideas that come out and stuff. So it'll be really interesting. I think I think a lot of the technology will just be making it more user friendly to help it go mainstream. Early on, with the sizing dies, it was, well, 6-7 years ago, probably, if you wanted to swage, you had to, buy 4 or 5 different sizes of swagers and find out which one sized the bullet right.
Yeah.
And then Tom at Swinglock came up with his adjustable sizing die, and that was a really big step forward, where you could dial in, just have one die and adjust it to get the bullet to fit your barrel. But that's, even that was maybe a little more work than what a lot of guys wanted to do. So now, I came out with these no size bullets that, load real easy and still shoot great, give you all the benefits of sabbatless. So I think we're just going to see trends like that, where it becomes more user friendly, which is going to make it more stream for the average shooter.
Yeah, I think a lot of people hear muzzleloading and they think, there's got to be a strict cleaning regiment. There's a lot of work on figuring out your gun, what load it likes, down to, even on the round ball stuff, there's still those different molds that you can get set up, and I think that's a real turnoff for a lot of guys that shoot center fire or high power stuff. But I think this is definitely creating a bridge where you're going to see a lot more crossover.
I agree. I'm excited to see you guys, starting to step up at an MLRA and, embrace it, doing some shoots to encourage people. That's only going to help take it more mainstream. But you're exactly right as far as, trying to figure out what load shoots in a gun, even with round. It's funny you say round balls, because that's with sabos. It's the same deal, where early on with my Savage, I had tons of trouble, and it's because my bore was loose, and that's where I get a lot of guys that are like, well, with these custom 45s, you really got to see what bullet your gun likes and stuff. And I'll be, not even stretching the truth a little bit. I don't think I've built a gun that hasn't shot sub MOA with my XLD bullets. The first load, I don't even play with loads. I just load them and shoot. And
right.
If we've Brooks or Bartlett or what, those cut rifle barrel companies that I use, they hold their bore tolerances so tight that, there's no throw like a center fire, and there's no bore barrel variation like with the mass produced stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever, it doesn't matter what gun, it's going to shoot that bullet and load combo, right? I've run into, a barrel here or there that was choked or whatever. I do a pre-sort on my barrels to make sure I'm building with, a barrel I know that is going to shoot. So I weed out some stuff that way on my custom builds, but there's just a lot less experimentation required with these high-end 45s to get them to shoot compared to mass-produced stuff, where I think those Savages, the barrel diameter could probably vary by as much as 5 or 10 thousandths.
Yeah.
They were all over the place, and so anyway, it's just a side tangent. But like we were saying, I think more mainstream, and it's exciting. I have a shoot in Iowa in September, and we usually have anywhere from 25 to 35 guys shooting in that, and you guys have your inline shoots, and it's just exciting to see how there's a community starting to form around the high performance stuff, and I think that's just going to keep on growing.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time. We've been doing that match that we filmed there. It's been going on, just kind of behind the scenes a little bit, and they reached out to me and we're talking about it, and I thought, man, that'd be awesome. My father and grandfather built a lot of match muzzleloading pistols back in the 80s and 90s. And so I've always been intrigued by that, just being able to take all of this and push it to the limits. But then seeing Jeff Fisk come in there and, no offense to any of the other shooters. A lot of them were shooting his guns, but man, I mean, watching him go and just work on the range was just awesome. I mean, there are people there asking questions, and I mean, he won out the day beating his own guns. But I mean, in between his shots, when he was done, he was out helping people, giving some people advice. And that's what's so energizing about this is, you know, you can like high performance muzzleloaders or precision muzzleloaders or not like them, but you know, there's still that camaraderie there that keeps all of this and keeps shooting sports going, which I think you cannot denounce anywhere.
So I was actually talking to Jeff about that, because the shoot there that I host in Iowa, I actually the last couple of years I haven't shot in it just because it's too hard for me to focus on running a match and talking to people and then even think about shooting. Jeff was telling me how he was helping a guy with his gun, and I'm like, holy cow, man, how do you shoot so good? And then in the middle, you know, you're helping people with their stuff. And he's like, yeah, it's tough, but I guess when you're that good, you can do it. Yeah. But
I think that's all kind of in between the ears, you know, it's getting into the game and then getting out of the game.
Yeah.
You know, and there are people that are really good at that. And then, you know, I wouldn't want to be interrupted at all, you know, like,
right.
I need some pure focus here, but you know, it's,
yeah. Jeff's a great guy.
Before we close, would you like to let people know where they can find you online? You know, social media, website, email, phone number, whatever you want to hand out. We'll make sure we get that in there.
Yeah, sure. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you can find me under Arrowhead Rifles. And then the website is www.arrowheadrifles.com. Best way to get a hold of me, like I said earlier on, is email. Phone can be hit or miss. I do try to get back to people eventually, but it can take a few days sometimes, especially now as we move into fall. Things are really gonna get busy. So email is definitely best. Like I said, also try to keep the questions short and to the point. If you've got a bunch of questions, you know, maybe it's best to say, you know, I'm interested in this. Do you have, you know, a resource you can point me to, and I can, you know, send you to the video and stuff. I don't want people to waste their time writing a bunch to just have me say, you know, go here and check this out. So but that's that's where people can find me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Luke, and thank you for sponsoring the match that we've got going on in July. We really appreciate it. We're really excited about the opportunities that we're having with it and trying to get that going more and have some more people having fun with muzzleloaders. Yeah,
excellent. Glad to be able to be a part. Appreciate the opportunity.
We'd like to thank Luke and Arrowhead Rifles for sponsoring our long-range muzzleloading hunters match that we're putting on at the end of July. That'll be July 25th and 26th. It's a really exciting match for us. We have over $3,000 in prizes to be handed out. You don't need to be the best shooter to win. Just about all the prizes will be handed out just based on who comes and who registers. So it's going to be a door prize system. It's going to kind of be drawn from hats. So you don't have to bring the best gun or be the best shooter to walk away with some nice prizes. Luke has graciously donated a $100 off gift card for Arrowhead Rifles, and that includes $100 off anything that he has in his store. I mean, he has a ton of accessories, a ton of parts. If you're looking at building your own custom muzzleloader, it's going to be a great opportunity for you to get into some nice custom parts to really amp up your muzzleloader. You can see a full list of the sponsors and the prizes that we have for the match at nmlra.org. We'll have a link down in the show notes too to give you a direct link to that list. Things are getting a little crazy again with COVID-19. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that the spring nationals at the NMLRA, as well as several of our smaller weekend shoots and events across the country, have been canceled. It looks like we're kind of going into another wave of that right now, with Fort Bridger being canceled here recently. Fort Loudon was also canceled. Just want to let you know, with all the rumors and things going on, you can always get up-to-date information about NMLRA events at nmlra.org. We also have nmlra.org/COVID-19 set up. It's a webpage that just has how COVID-19 is affecting the NMLRA. As of recording, everything is still a go for the September National Championships. we're getting things around and reaching out to vendors who have had their entire businesses really affected by all the cancellations through the year right now, reaching out to them and trying to give them a place where they can come and make up for a little bit of the losses this year. But be sure to follow us on social media. On Facebook, we're the NMLRA. On Instagram, we're Muzzle Blasts. You can always see up-to-date and official information at nmlra.org/COVID-19. On a similar note here, if you're looking to pick up some supplies or some kits or whatever you need for when we can get out and have events again, be sure to check out nmlra.org/shop-small and nmlra.org/advertisers. Both of those links are set up with an entire list of our NMLRA advertisers and our mom and pop shops that come and set up our events year round. So please, if you're looking for muzzleloading supplies, living history of supplies, and accoutrements right now, please check out nmlra.org and support our supporters. If you can, in any capacity, let them know that you came from us. It just helps them know that we're getting the word out and trying to help them during these difficult times. Here at Muzzle Blasts, we really appreciate all the support that we've received, especially this year, just during all the hectic times here. If you'd like to help out the show a little bit, be sure to tell a friend, subscribe on iTunes or Spotify. nmlra.org/podcast is set up with a full stream of all of the podcasts that we've recorded here. You can also use the discount code podcast10 at nmlra.org. You'll get 10% off your order of NMLRA and Muzzle Blast merchandise. That lets us thank you a little bit and lets us know that you're listening to the show and want to support what we're doing here. It was great to have Luke on. This was the first time that we've had a chance to talk, not in email, but it's always nice to sit down and talk with somebody who's passionate and supports shooting sports, especially muzzleloading. So thank you so much, Luke. Be sure to check out the links to Luke's social media and his website in the show notes down below. Hopefully we can get Luke back on maybe here in the fall sometime after hunting season's starting to die down a little bit and get some hunting stories from him. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.